If you watched any of the Mecum auction this week, you realize that it's pretty much a buyer's market when it comes to vintage motorcycles. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 6 smart steps to help you find the right vintage motorcycle and avoid expensive mistakes. Step 1, decide how you're really going to use it. Before you look at a single classified ad, ask yourself one simple question. How am I actually going to use this motorcycle? Be honest with yourself. Is it a winter restoration project? You live up north, it snows in, you don't have anything to do, you want to go ride and you can't, and so you got your vintage bike to restore. Hey, that's good. Or are you going to have the bike as an occasional Sunday rider? You go out to bike night and Sunday rides, or are you going to use it as a regular daily rider? You're going to restore it and you're going to ride it back and forth to school, or you're going to go to the grocery store, you're going to go ride every day to work. Okay, in that case, you want something that's pretty reliable. Or are you going to use it as just a show bike? You're going to restore it and take it on your trailer and go to the local vintage motorcycle shows and win you a trophy. Or is it something else? Now, if it's a winter project, I'm assuming that you have a heated workshop or a place to work. You know, your wife's not going to let you park that thing in the living room all winter. You're going to need some basic mechanical tools and be prepared to buy some special tools. And at least you're going to have some basic mechanical knowledge and skills. But if you're attacking this as a winter project, pretty good chance is that you have all of that already in spades and you're well equipped to do that project. You also want to have a realistic idea of what parts are going to cost. What's it going to cost to repaint it? What's tires going to cost? What's a new battery, new seat cover, all of that. That all adds up. If that's you, you might consider something as challenging as, say, a Norton Commando or a Vintage Triumph or a BSA or another European brand. Now let's say you're going to be an occasional rider. You know, Sunday rides, bike nights, vintage club meets, that sort of thing. You want reasonable reliability, good parts availability, because things are going to break as you use the bike. And you'd really appreciate some strong owner community support. This is where late 60s and 70s Japanese bikes really shine. Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, Suzuki. You may also consider BMW Airheads, Moto Guzzi's, and Triumphs. Now let's say you're going to be a regular daily rider. You plan to ride it daily or regularly. Reliability becomes critical. You don't want to be going to work and the damn thing break down on you. That means parts availability is also critical. If it breaks down, how quickly can I repair it and get the part to repair it? Your community support matters. You may have to turn to someone in your vintage community and say, hey, I have no idea how to fix this. How do I do it? You may want to focus heavily on Japanese manufacturers starting in the late 1960s. Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, Suzuki. These bikes were mass produced in high numbers, and that matters because if you have to go into salvage to get the part, the bike is there. You do not want to buy a bike that is only produced maybe 1 or 2 years and there's not very many of, because there won't be any of those out there to find used parts to repair your bike. Okay, so you're going to build a show bike. If you plan on primarily displaying your bike at bike shows, you're going to trailer it most of the time. So your options there kind of expand. You can look at more esoteric European offerings like a Laverda, a Ducati, a Moto Morini, a Osa, a DKW, Moto Guzzi. All of those become possible because you're not going to use them as a daily rider. You're going to just show them. And so you want something that's in good trim when you buy it so you can take it up to the next level and make it a real showpiece. But understand, you know, show bikes are different and the ownership experience for that kind of vintage bike is different than the one you're going to ride on a regular basis. If you find this video interesting and it helped you in your ideas about getting a vintage motorcycle, how about giving us a like and a subscribe? Drop me a line, put a line in the comment about what bike you're looking for. You never know, I might know where you can get one of those. Step 2, do your homework. This is done before you can contact any seller. So now that you have a general idea of how you will use the bike, you can zero in on a particular brand and model to consider. Do not immediately go to Facebook Marketplace and start shopping, okay? Spend a couple of weeks researching the potential bike you think you may be interested in. Go to the Facebook groups. Go to the owners forums. If there's a brand specific club, like say you may have a Norton Commando club in your area, lurk, read, and learn. It's going to pay off in the long run. Your mission is to answer these questions. What is the price range of the bike I'm interested in? So if you've looked on Facebook, okay, and you've kind of talked to the groups, there's going to be a general rule of thumb about, okay, this bike, generally I can get a decent copy for $4,000. A really nice restored might go 10 to 12. So you've got an idea. From basket case to fully restored, complete and running, how much does that typically cost? What's the model's most common failure point? What parts are unobtainium? Where can you get a shop manual? This means during the restoration process, you're going to have to find parts. You're going to have to know how to take the parts off and reinstall them. And you're going to find out that some of those parts are virtually impossible to find. You got to ask yourself, okay, is there a reliable source for parts? Now, if you're doing Commandos, Nortons, or Triumphs, you can buy just about any part brand new from part suppliers like Andover Norton or the Bonneville shop here in the United States. What kind of special tools are going to be required? You're not going to take the exhaust nuts off a Commando with a pair of pliers. You're going to have the special tool that goes with that particular part to get it off. The next thing you got to think about is, okay, if I bought this bike and I put all this money into it, can I get my investment out of it? What sort of demand is there going to be 3, 4, 5 years from now when I have to exit the bike? Who are you going to call when you're over your head? And this is extremely important. No matter how knowledgeable you are, no matter how great a shop man you are, all the tools you have, a friend of mine just did a couple of restorations, and he actually got to the point where we had to take it to the fella who was the expert on those bikes and have him do the basic work, because we were completely lost. Every vintage motorcycle has a weakness, at least one, maybe more. You need to know it before you buy it, and you need to know how you're going to deal with it once you get into the bike and you've got to do the repair or fix the weakness. This research phase shapes your exit strategy. And yes, you better have an exit strategy. There comes a time in life of all motorcycles when there is just not enough room in the garage and something has to go. And your vintage bike is going to be what has to go. You've got to have a strategy for how you're going to do that and not take a bath of all the money you spent on it. Okay, step 3. We've figured out what we want. We've done our homework. What condition should we buy the bike in? And how will we pay for it? All vintage motorcycles, the condition of vintage motorcycles, exist on a continuum from a fully disassembled basket case to a showroom level full restoration with infinite stages in between. Okay? So you got to have that in the back of your mind because it's going to affect what you buy. You have to decide what kind of a buyer you are. Are you the builder restorer? Or are you the rider? Or are you the investor? Now here's a harsh truth. The cheapest bike you can buy, that basket case, is often the most expensive vintage bike you will ever own. Why? Because you're probably going to put enough money into that bike to get it up to running quality that you could have gone out, taken the same amount of money and bought a fully restored version that you didn't have to do any of that to. But if you're a builder, well, hey, that's the purpose of buying a bike. But if you're a rider, hey, that's the end of the spectrum I want to be looking at. And if you're an investor, you definitely want to be thinking about something that's fully restored. The cheapest bike you buy is often the most expensive bike you'll buy when it comes to vintage motorcycles. Another thing is, where are you going to do the work? Do you have a long-term workspace? You have a garage? Is it warm enough in the winter to work? Do you have the tools? Well, if you don't have any of those things, vintage bikes may not be for you. Do you have restoration skills? Have you done a recommissioning of a bike in the past? You got a general idea of what's involved. Or you're brand new to the hobby. Okay, that's something you got to keep in mind. Do you want to wait a year while you're restoring the bike to be able to ride it? Or do you want to get out and go ride the bike now? It's summer, let's go ride. Well, I can't, I'm restoring my bike. Buy the best example you can afford. Let me say that again, and here's my advice to you, regardless of who you are. Buy the best example of the bike you are interested in that you can afford. General rule of thumb, it's usually cheaper in the long run to go that route. So at this point, you have a general idea of how much you will have to pay for a typical example of the bike you're wanting in the condition you feel most comfortable with owning. Where will you get the funds to make the purchase? Do you have the cash in the bank to shell out $5,000, $6,000, $7,000? Many people do, and that's, hey, good for them. Go pay cash. That's the easy way. Like Cycle Cruiser says, if you can't pay cash, you shouldn't buy it. But unfortunately, many of us don't have that luxury. We've got to get a loan. Well, where are we going to get the loan at? Go to the credit union? I've found that credit unions nowadays are very hesitant to lend money on any kind of a vintage bike or any kind of a bike at all. How about the bank? I went to our bank, they don't even give motorcycle loans. So where does that leave us? Possibly going to something like LendingTree and seeing who's available and who's willing to make loans for vintage motorcycles. This may be one of the greatest challenges of buying a vintage bike, certainly harder than finding and buying it. Whatever source of financing you decide upon, you'll need to have the total amount locked in and readily available before you start shopping for the real thing. Because once you find the deal, you want to close it. And you don't want to hesitate trying to go find financing 2 or 3 weeks because it'll be gone by the time you come back in many cases. Okay, step 4. Where to find it? Where am I going to find the bike? Let the hunt begin. Okay, most people are going to start online. So we go to Google and we go into their search, but there's a specific way to search Google if you're looking for vintage motorcycles. You want to type in the brand, the model, where if it's for sale, and the country you live in. So an example would be Norton Commando for sale in the US. Now when you do that, Google's going to return a pretty good search. They're going to bring up Cycle Trader, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, and maybe some dealer sites and other sources the farther you scroll down. Cycle Trader generally has very quality bikes, but the people are going to charge just a little bit more than what you're going to find on Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace is localized. It's within 250 miles of where you live. And you can expand that. There's a way to do that. But when you're shopping on Facebook Marketplace, you're looking at what's available locally. And that may work. You can also go to various dealer sites. If you know of a dealer that has vintage bikes, there you go. Now there's other sources. The Mecum auction was just over and we saw that there were some vintage bikes in there that were steals. But Mecum is a source and other local auctions are also sources. Also, how about a swap meet? There are several vintage motorcycle swap meets. I cover one called the Barber Vintage Motorcycle Festival Swap Meet. And this year they had some bargains you would not believe. And I'll put that video up at the end of this one and so you can check it out. Okay, now that you have a broad idea of what's currently available in the overall vintage market, let's go into Facebook Marketplace and look for some local finds. That way that'll save us a lot of travel to go get it. There are many owner groups for particular brands in Facebook. There may be 3 or 4 Facebook groups that support the brand you're looking for or support the model you're looking for. I think Norton Commandos have like 5 groups. Now, a lot of the times that is a great source to find a bike, but be warned, the people in those groups are going to value their bikes a little higher than what is the general public's going to value them. Their bikes may actually be a little better quality, but you're going to pay more for it. The best vintage motorcycles often are never advertised. So this is where you got to start using word of mouth. Ask your buddies, hey, you know about a Commando that's here locally? I'd like to think about buying one. And you'll be surprised what turns up if you put that word out, and it'll go pretty fast through the grapevine. You might want to attend vintage bike events. As I mentioned, the Barber Vintage Motorcycle Festival, if you're in Alabama or close by, Your local swap meet. Do you have a vintage motorcycle club in your area? Go join it. Talk to people. Visit repair shops. Do you have a local repair shop that covers vintage bikes? Now, the new corporate shops, they don't work on anything over 10 years old. So you got a loss there. But we happen to have the good fortune of having a Triumph shop in our area, and man, they'll work on anything. I was in there the other day. They were working on restoring a Norton Commando. Step 5, you found the bike. How do we evaluate it? This is where inexperience is going to get you in trouble. If you've not dealt with vintage bikes before, or that particular brand or model of the vintage bike, you might want to try to find someone that has to help you make these decisions. First question, is it complete? Does it have side covers? Is the gas tank there? Are the fenders there? Are the mufflers there? Is the tail light there? Are the handlebars there? Is it complete? You would be surprised at how many parts get taken off bikes and they are unobtainium when it comes time to put them back on. Okay, you found the bike, it's all there. Now let's look at the parts. Open the gas cap, look in the tank. What does it look like? Is it totally rusted mess, or is it in pretty good shape? Is the outside of the tank free of dings? Maybe it has the original paint, but that can be brought back to life. Are both of the side covers there? You want to talk about a part that's unobtainium. Try finding side covers for a vintage Japanese bike. How about the exhaust? Does it have the original exhaust, or did somebody put a 4-into-1 header on it? Are the fenders there? Have someone taken a hacksaw and cut the fenders down? Are all your controls there? Are they in a decent condition? Are the carbs there? Air cleaners there? Spark plugs in the engine? The worst thing you can run across is the engine doesn't have any spark plugs in it or no carburetors on it, because inside that engine is going to be full of mouse nest, and you're going to have to take the whole engine apart to restore it. Are the valve covers in place? Things like that, that the guy that owned it said, well, I'm going to get out there and store that, and he took it all apart and never got back to putting it together. Is the center stand there? Does it even have a center stand? Is the side stand there? Those will be hard parts to obtain. So when you're looking at the bike and you're trying to answer the question, is this complete? Do a thorough inspection and make sure every part is there. If it's not, put in the back of your mind, okay, if I buy this bike, I'm going to have to find that part somewhere and buy it to replace it. Has the bike been modified? Now, you'll run across a lot of vintage bikes, and back in the day, you know, people wanted to modify them. Aftermarket seat, different handlebars, aftermarket exhaust. Somebody chopped the end of the frame off, painted it with a rattle can. Those kind of bikes, the price had better be pretty low if you're really considering buying one. And if you're considering buying one, you better have a pretty good parts budget, because you'll have to wind up replacing all those. Most vintage motorcycle aficionados prefer bone stock bikes that have the original parts present. Okay, it's all there and it's bone stock. That is a good buy. Even though we may make modifications ourselves after we buy it, we'll always save the original parts, put them in a box, and when we sell the bike, those parts go with the bike, and that kind of mitigates the modifications we made. Some people who make modifications, they don't have the original parts, so you can't put them back on the bike. So that means you got to go find them. General rule of thumb, the more modified it is, the harder resale becomes. Now that can be mitigated with that box of parts. Just keep that in mind. The more modified it is, the harder it is going to be to resell and restore, and more expensive. So keep that in the back of your mind. Does it run? Now, if you're shopping for a bike and they've got in the ad, well, it ran when parked. No, it doesn't run. A bike that doesn't run is heavily discounted in price. If the general market is paying, say, $5,000 for a running bike that's all there, a non-running bike, you cut $1,000 off of it or more, okay, depending on how bad a condition it is. Why? Because you don't know if there's even pistons inside of the engine. You don't know if the engine isn't seized up, or the transmission is blown, or you got electrical problems you'll never figure out. You want to see the bike run. Now, if you're shopping online, ask the seller to post a cold start video. They'll be glad to. A legitimate seller will be more than happy to do that. If you're shopping in person, you're standing there looking at the bike, ask the seller, hey, start it up. And when you tell him you're going to come look at the bike, tell him not to start it. So he's doing a cold start for you. A bike that runs is worth a lot more than a bike that ran when parked. Was the bike owned by a conscientious owner? Look for phrases in the ad like adult owned, always garage kept, well maintained. I have the shop receipts, okay? As a general rule of thumb, older owners tend to be more conscientious than our younger owners. In fact, most vintage bikes are owned by older owners. So just look at the bike. You'll know what it looks like when you go to his garage and look around his garage and see what sort of order it's in. That's going to be the order that reflects what the bike is in. Bikes owned by mature, long-term ownership often show consistent care and upkeep, and that matters a lot. Now, the documentation. Do you have a shop manual? Does it come with a bike? Do you have service records? You know, that's not as important to me, but hey, if you got them, get them. Is the original toolkit present on the bike? Does it have a box of spare parts or original parts? Were there any special tools this bike requires, and do they come with it? Take everything they offer. Don't think, oh, I'll never use that, or nah. If they say, here, this goes with a bike, by God, you put it in the truck and take it with you. Even the worthless parts. Next thing, do the numbers match? Now, in many states, a bike older than, say, 25 years, they don't even expect a title. In our state, they won't even issue a title for an old bike. But you still have to have a bill of sale. But in many states, they still do have the title, and you better have a clean one, or you're going to have a real problem getting it registered. Check the frame, usually up on the neck, and the engine numbers so that they match. Non-matching numbers also affect the value. You got a parts match bike, price goes up. Non-parts matching, you lost some value. Don't buy into that problem. Do they have a clear title, and does it match the VIN numbers? Is there any mechanics lien or any kind of bill tied to it, like a loan that hasn't been paid off? Are the VIN numbers clean and unmolested? Paperwork problems can turn a good deal into a nightmare. Okay, step 6. We bought the bike. How do we get it home? Well, before you close that deal, you need to have this part of it figured out, your logistics. Surprisingly, a professional bike shipping company is often the safest, most convenient, and least expensive option for having your bike delivered over long distances. And usually it only costs about $600. So figure that into your budget. Professional motorcycle shippers will usually deliver your bike in a semi-truck, so you must ensure that the streets that lead to your house will not prevent them from getting up and down to your house to deliver it. If there's overhanging trees or it's a gated community, you're gonna have problems getting it delivered. Oh, you say, well, I'll just rent a trailer and go get it. Well, if it's local, like within 200 miles, that could be doable. That could be economical, especially if you own or can borrow your buddy's trailer. Be sure to bring your proper motorcycle tie-down straps, your wheel chock if necessary. You've got all that on your trailer if you've got a motorcycle trailer. Don't rely on the seller to provide you something to tie the bike down. That's a mistake. Now, what if the distance is much longer and it requires an overnight stay in a hotel? You got to drive out there, maybe 7-8 hours. You got to get the bike, put it on the trailer, secure it down, and on the way home, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon by you get all that done. You ain't going to make it overnight home. You're going to have to park in a hotel somewhere. Well, if you do that, a lot of the savings of going and getting it yourself kind of are eroded. And also think about this. Do you really want to park your trailer that displays your hard-won prize in a poorly lit hotel parking lot just asking for someone to come and steal it? Okay, well, I'll fly out there and ride it home. There's folks that do that, and they think that's fairly economical, particularly if they can get some of those Super Saver airplane tickets. But here's your problem. I wouldn't encourage that for a vintage motorcycle. You're going to have to pay airfare. You have to rent a car to get to wherever it is that the bike's stored at. You're going to have a hotel charge because you're going to stay overnight and you're going to have meals. Well, a lot of that savings you thought you were going to have by going and getting it yourself, poof, they're instantly evaporated. Additionally, you're going to take a 50 to 75-year-old machine that you are not real sure if it'll run, and you're going to drive it 1,000 miles home? No. You get out there, an old machine breaking down out in the middle of nowhere, that's not a romantic adventure. That's an expensive mistake. And besides, even if you do that and you do break down, you're going to wind up renting a truck, a U-Haul truck, and buying a set of tie-downs at Walmart to get your bike home anyway. So think very carefully about that fly and buy model. I wouldn't recommend that. Well, here are my closing thoughts. Buying the motorcycle is the easy part. Owning it wisely requires planning. Selling one without losing your investment requires an exit strategy. So if you know how you'll use it, you do your homework, you have the money ready to buy it, you searched effectively, you evaluated carefully, you got it home safely, and you got a plan of how to exit the bike after you're finished with it, you're ready to go. You dramatically increase your chances of having more good days than bad ones. And you know, that's what vintage motorcycle is all about. Now I'm going to put a video to the Barber Vintage Motorcycle Swap Meet up here. And if this video interested you and you're thinking about vintage bikes, go look at that video. It'll give you a pretty good idea of what's available out there. So until next time, ride safe, and we'll see you down the road.